I'm Ann Farrell Tata, your host, and I'm delighted today to welcome Ben Unkle. Today we're going to be talking about older adults, seniors, and we're going to be talking about wellness and aging well. And we are going to learn how aging, it's a lot more controllable than you think. So welcome to the program, Ben.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Now, I want to start with this, that you have been described as you have a passion for improving the quality of life at any age and making retirement years for seniors fulfilling and fun and not just endured.
That's right. They're your freedom years.
That's very optimistic.
There's a lot to be optimistic about. A lot of people, a lot of new research out there.
Well, before we get started talking about aging well, can you tell us a little bit about Westminster and what you do at Westminster Canterbury?
Sure. Well, I have the honor of being the CEO of a senior living corporation, and we're 33 years old, faith-based. The bishop, a local bishop, appoints half of my board, and the general presbyter appoints the other half. And I came at a time where the board was interested in growing and expanding and serving older adults in other ways. So we've expanded our business now to include a home health agency. We can come to your house and help you. We have a in-home hospice agency now. And what I'm most excited about is that we have 3 residents who have lived with us all 33 years. And I look at what's the elixir, what's the secret to that? And as I've read more and learned more, the wellness program we put together is really first rate, and we're looking at taking it beyond our gates to serve the local community. Westminster Wellness for Life, we call it. But that's really the passion. So there's a multifaceted senior living organization.
Well, and that's so important right now because we know that the population is aging and there's such a need for that. But can you talk about some of the major issues that older adults are facing now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the primary one is just the state of ignorance and the stereotypes, even in their own mind, about the inevitability of the negatives and the downsides of aging. People don't understand how much control they have to bend the curve and change the curve on their aging process. And so there's a widespread major problem. Most major problem is ignorance. 2 other problems, I think, we live in a society with a lot of ageism. Older adults are diminished and they lose part of their adulthood. And I think people are afraid as they age that either through frailty or through loss of mental acuity and cognitive ability, that others in the adult community will see them as somehow less, and that they will lose their power and their impact, their ability to enjoy life, but they will be seen as lesser. And we have terms and labels for groups, and I just like to say older adults. But you often hear people say, for example, gee, isn't that a cute couple? The retired CEO of Norfolk Southern walking down the hall with his wife holding hands does not want to be called cute. Your 5-year-old kid wants to be called cute. And we think it's endearing and the purpose is right. But so that's a problem that faces seniors. And then finally, I think the other thing that, because the American dream and so much ego is placed around your house. If you think about it, the status of your house. And we're all taught that the American dream is to own your own home and have nice cars and all the rest. People hold on to it too long. And the house doesn't have to be, but can be very isolating. And so isolation and depression are very big risk factors for seniors. So those 3 issues, ignorance about how much of aging well is controllable, isolation and depression, and ageism, I think, in our society.
Well, can you talk a little bit about the ageism as far as it is controllable? Like what kind of things how would you explain that?
Well, the ageism, I think, is the diminished kind of perception that others have of you. And we combat that by just showing people the vitality and purpose and what older adults still contribute and still do contribute. On the ignorance about aging well and how much control you have over that, we just have to do what we're doing right now, which I hope you'll let me to talk about and educate people about the latest research, because it's very exciting. And there are things you can do. Everyone's heard use it or lose it. Not only is that true, but the research shows if you use it, you can regain it, you can restore it.
That's
and
amazing.
So many people just accept that gradual slope of decline as part of the natural process and don't battle and alter that trajectory, which is entirely within their power. So we have to tell people about what they can do.
Now, can you talk a little bit about brain fitness? Because that sounds like that would be...
Brain fitness is a major component. I think if I had to say what older adults fear most as they enter their retirement years is dementia. People are afraid of dementia. It affects, obviously, the quality of life. It affects your power. As adults, since the time we were teenagers and became willful, and on a gradual slope after that, we've had more and more individual power over our lives. And so when people look at dementia, they are afraid of losing that. Brain fitness is a hot topic right now, and there's so much promising research about what you can do to delay any cognitive decline, and even if you have it, to flatten the curve or even regain some cognitive abilities. So, there are several key things. First and foremost, you may not like hearing this, and it's counterintuitive to some people. Exercise, aerobic exercise,
So
staying
physical
active.
exercise.
Yes, so it'd be great to talk about luminosity and brain games and all the things you would expect for brain fitness. But the first things first, the biggest impact on brain health is your physical health. Exercise, being active, moving around is a key, one of the biggest variables, key determiners of brain health. So
And why is that? How is...
I don't know why the science is that way. There's some thought about the plaques that build up in our brain and all of that, and that aerobic exercise keeps those things to a minimum. But the studies confirm it time and time again that the highest correlating factor is physical fitness and exercise. So if you don't want to get dementia, if you're worried about Aunt Millie having Alzheimer's disease, and whether that's going to happen to you or your parents had it or some other form of dementia, exercise. And it's never too late to start that either.
I was going to ask that too. Is it, if somebody's listening and they've been sort of a couch potato and they hear this, they can start now and it'll still make a difference.
That's exactly right. So we have programs even out in the community that we're starting where you can just use a chair and start exercising around a chair. You don't have to have a $200 piece of infomercial gym equipment in your house. You can use chairs and home exercises, and we certainly do them in classes, which is encouraging and uplifting and all of that, all the way up to a fitness studio where you stick in a card and it remembers who you are.
Wow.
And the machine adjusts to your body type and the positions and resets the weights and says how many repetitions you should do. So there's all level of ways to safely get into physical exercise. Of course, cardio exercise, aerobic exercise like swimming. We have 2 pools, 2 different temperatures in each pool. But there's plenty that you can do at home. Just get active. Locally here in Virginia Beach, you can just join the rec center. It's dirt cheap, and all sorts of, they have a silver sneakers program there. Just get active. That's the first thing you can do.
Well, and also at the beach, just go to the boardwalk and take a walk.
There you go.
Sure
Walking is the best exercise. Walking and swimming. Brisk walking does wonders. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Blue Zone study. It's fascinating. So Google out their Blue Zone study. National Geographic published it. There's a researcher who spent time looking statistically at places in the world, towns, regions where people live the longest. And he called it a Blue Zone, where you had the highest number of people getting to be 100 and over. And he reverse engineered their lifestyle and looked at what was different about the way these people lived. And there were several fascinating findings. He's got 9 factors, but a couple that are important. Moving, being active. And it doesn't have to be necessarily the gym, but these people walk to get their groceries. They walk, so to your point, walking is a key thing. Having a purpose in life. I happen to believe we were designed to have a purpose in life, a bigger purpose. And so when you retire, a lot of people struggle if their life's purpose has mainly been around their work.
Yeah.
They struggle with finding purpose. So you want to be involved in community somehow to have purpose in life. Everyone, when you wake up in the morning, what's your why for what you're going to do that day? What is your passion? What is your purpose? How are you contributing? That was a major factor. Wine, I like that one. It's not all hard stuff. People who drink moderately drink wine. That was a correlating factor. But there are several things. So if you look at Blue Zone's westminstercanterbury.com on the internet. You can go right to their site and look at their studies. It's very, very interesting.
So, okay, so physical exercise is good for brain fitness. What are some of the other?
Well, the second thing you might have anticipated is those brain games and intellectual exercises.
So
exercise
luminosity.
the brain. Now,
Does
I'm
that
not
mean
advertising
crossword puzzles?
luminosity, crossword puzzles, whatever it is. In fact, you know,
How
there
about
are some
balancing
that
your checkbook?
balancing your checkbook helps. Here's what I can say that may not be intuitive to people. You'll get the most benefit from brain exercise if it's something new that you're mastering.
Oh, wow.
We have our own director of brain fitness at Westminster Canterbury, Dr. Scott Sauter. He's a neuropsychologist, and he has taught us that neuroplasticity is the key. Stretching the brain, having the brain do something and work an area that it hasn't worked before. So, an example that might be learning a new instrument that you've never learned before, taking up a new hobby like painting, learning a new language. Do something different and you'll get the biggest payoff for your intellectual effort there because you're stretching new parts of the brain. One of the most moving documentaries I ever saw, it talks about bringing iPods to nursing homes.
Oh, yeah.
And as they identified the music of their youth and put the headphones on them, people who hadn't spoken in years start reminiscing about their childhood.
Wow.
The neuroconnectors
Yeah.
from music uses so many different parts of the brain, and it taps into something that's not lost, that long-term memory. So they're very, very exciting things that we're learning and discovering.
That brings up a good point. I actually read somewhere recently that people even that are in full-blown Alzheimer's or dementia, when they hear a song, they'll be able to sing the words to the song. Like that whatever part of the brain recalls the music or the words. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that, and I wish I could remember the name of this study. Maybe we'll post it on your website if you have a way to get some references out there, but or this film, this documentary. I think it's Awakening, but I'll have to confirm that. So it opens with a lady who's near 100 who can't remember what she did for a living, can't remember what her job was, can't remember her children, and they put some old gospel music, I believe, on for her that she was familiar with. And all of a sudden, she's talking about her Sunday school days and who her friends were in Sunday school. This is someone who wasn't oriented to time and place before.
Wow.
And so that's exciting. But the point is, if you want to keep your brain healthy, intellectual stimulation of any kind is good. The things that stretch you, that are new to you, are even better in terms of return on time spent. At Westminster, you know, I think you can summarize a lot of this wellness with engagement.
Yeah.
There's another word for it. And so we need to be engaged. I even hate the word retire. When you retire, you think of withdraw.
Yeah.
You think of step back. You've got to be engaged in life. You've got to be engaged physically. Your brain has to be engaged. And so we've started a couple of programs. We have a wellness connection where during the day we have mind, body, and spirit exercise. And we have our own brain gym that we're starting that's going to be available 24 hours a day. Just like you go down and you swim laps in the pool, you'll have access to a 24-hour brain gym with computer programs and all the rest.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for being here. And if you'll stick around for just a minute, I'm Ann Farrell-Tata. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and continue our discussion on wellness, aging well.
Aging well.
We'll be right back. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell-Tata, and we're going to continue our discussion with Ben Unkle. Ben is the CEO of Westminster Canterbury, and we've been talking about older adults, senior citizens. We like the term older adults, and we're going to continue talking about, we were talking about isolation and engagement. The opposite of isolation is it's better to be engaged with older adults. So welcome back.
Oh, happy to be here. I have a lot of passion around this topic. So engagement is the key. You want to be engaged in life. You want to be engaged physically. You want to be engaged mentally. And going back to the Blue Zone study, being engaged spiritually is important. We talked about purpose, but there's part of that study said that you could add 14 years to your life if you attended a religious service 4 times a month. This is the Blue Zone study. So some of the other things that you can do, just to complete the list, meditation. So the opposite, you got to rest too.
Yeah.
The opposite of the intellectual activity is meditation, be it whatever form of meditation you happen to prefer, but just slowing the brain down and meditating and being at peace, reducing stress. The stress hormones cause inflammation in the brain and elsewhere and are not good. And then there's healthy eating, the typical things you hear about wellness. You want to do the vitamin E and nuts and berries and flaxseeds, all that stuff, and you can find lots of articles on that.
So now the older adults that we're talking about now, are they learning about this on their own? Are they researching this, or how do you disseminate this information and the latest research?
Well, we're very fortunate to have a lot of older adults, 700 of them, living in community. We have our own TV station, and we have town hall meetings, and we have a wellness department, and we have all sorts of things to get the word out. The next most exciting project is that we're taking Wellness for Life out to church basements and out into the community to educate people about this, and then provide the programs that they can follow through on to stay engaged, to exercise their body, to exercise their mind. So that's what we're trying to do.
So in the dementia, a lot of the research, is it showing that it can be reversed, or is it just preventable?
None of the research has said cure. But for example, there was a study at the Mayo Clinic involving 1,900 individuals that they followed, and they found that the delay of onset of dementia could be as long as 9 years, was on average 9 years for people who still engaged in rigorous intellectual activity. So no one yet has talked about a cure, but we do find improvement. You can bend the curve and turn the slope back upward. You can regain some of it and then further delay the deterioration. Unfortunately, it's not a panacea.
Right.
But
anything is hopeful.
I would take back, I would welcome any additional day I was granted with greater lucidity and the ability to have my personhood restored, to be a full person, a full adult, to love my loved ones and my friends, and to be engaged in the world. It is very sad. All of us have had experience of seeing people who are in the fog of dementia. There's a period where it's frightening. There's a paranoia, and then there's a peaceful period, but the peaceful period is a peaceful tunnel. And to the extent we can delay all that or get some good days back, make better days for ourselves, it's a no-brainer to do this stuff. People just don't know. Right.
Well, and how does genetics play a role?
Well, so about 30% of your risk factor is genetic. So we don't quite understand. We don't know the causes yet. We have studies that show images of the brain and shrinkage of the brain and certain plaques. And there's debate, are the plaques in your brain for Alzheimer's patients, are those a byproduct of what else is going on, or are they the cause? I just heard an interesting piece in the popular press last week about a breakthrough drug that will dissipate some of those plaques. And it'll be interesting to see as that occurs. We might learn more about whether those plaques are a cause or a byproduct. But we don't fully understand why the brain goes into this shrinkage and these plaques build up that seem to be present in all of the Alzheimer's patients. With that particular disease, we never had the ability to diagnose it except by its symptoms, or opening your head after death. So we still don't know a lot about it, and MRIs and other scans are helping us see what the brain looks like to confirm diagnoses now, while people are still living. But unfortunately, we haven't found the silver bullet, but we have found out that you can, if you're thinking of it about going to Las Vegas and whether your number is going to come up with dementia, 70% of it's in your hands, 30% of it's the genes.
And that's the things we've been talking about,
Lifestyle.
exercise and
engagement for short. Engage your mind, body, spirit. Contribute. Exercise the brain, get involved in intellectual pursuits and passions, exercise the body. And again, that is the surprising thing when you say brain health to people. They don't think about exercising their body.
No, I wouldn't think about that. Well, I do want to talk a little bit about the isolation, because I know a lot of older adults who they want to live independently. They want to keep their home.
Sure.
As you talked about earlier, they want, home is important to them, and familiarity and all that.
Right.
But then what happens is a lot of times they are alone. So how do you sort of balance that, allowing them to be independent, but yet keeping them engaged?
It's a tough issue, and of course, everyone ought to age in the way that they determine for themselves is
Right.
best for them. That's the adulthood piece that I was talking about that
Yeah.
sometimes gets diminished in this ageism, this perception of
They're a cute couple,
senior citizens is somehow diminished. And not
Yeah.
everyone is diminished, and many are far wiser and smarter than my best day, and remain that way until they draw their last breath. But isolation is a key problem. I think that when people first retire, that first 10 years, they're looking at their health, and they're maintaining a lot of their social activities, and the house is wonderful. It was their dream house. They worked for it. They earned it. And then there comes a tipping point where the house is more of a burden than a pleasure, and the house becomes isolating. They don't drive at night.
Right.
Then they don't drive in the rain.
Right.
Then a spouse dies, and they quit getting out to their clubs or their churches or things, and they start to self-isolate by their frailty in their house.
Right.
I try to encourage people to take a longer view of their retirement and think 30, 40 years now with the longevity that's going on.
Right.
And what's the right time before that tipping point starts where you might want to consider a move into community. So community is the best place when you live in community, of course, to have purpose in life. Being in community, connected with other people, you're going to be more engaged. There's going to be more fun activities to do, more causes to volunteer for. You're going to be around other people who spur you on and encourage
Right.
you to be part of life again. I've had children tell me that they move in and they can't get them they can only talk to mom on the answering machine anymore because she's out and about, and that's what you want. But for those who choose to stay home, which is a fine choice, I would just say be intentional. Fight that tendency as decline occurs to self-isolate. It's going to be more work. It's going to take more effort. But get out to the rec center in Virginia Beach and join the Silver Sneakers Club.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, stay connected. A quilt group. It doesn't have to be strenuous activity. You've got to be a part of community somehow.
Right.
Engagement is the secret to wellness. Community is the best way to be engaged. That's what engagement is all about.
Well, and to your point earlier about brain fitness, that would be a perfect time to join a class or try something new, take a foreign language or something that you've never done before.
Exactly.
Just to get out.
Exactly. And today, the other very exciting frontier is the power of technology to create virtual community.
Oh.
So I was at a conference last month where I saw a TV set that could be converted. They could layer this onto your cable program. It wasn't through the cable company, but they had a box that was built into the TV. And you could do Skype through the remote control with your children and grandchildren. You could do other sorts of things through the TV set. So if we can get to the place where we leverage home monitoring and simple video conferencing tools to connect people. Distance learning, another great opportunity.
Oh, right.
If you go on the internet and just research free courses, I mean, Harvard, MIT have gotten together, UVA is getting into these consortiums to offer free online courses with the computer. And there are computers out there, if you research them, that are geared towards seniors, that have simpler options and choices and touch interfaces. In fact, one of the most exciting projects this year for our organization is 31 flat screen, touch screen computers that we will deploy. The nursing home is the smallest segment of our business, but it's very important.
Yeah.
And so we will deploy those 31 touch screens at the bedside and study with an academic institution the impact of engagement through technology. If you think about the time in your life when you're in a nursing home, either through frailty or cognition issues, that's another self-isolating thing, like your home.
Yeah.
A self-isolating experience, or your body is, or your mind is starting to trap you and isolate you. If we can break through with the window of technology to help people engage with the world. Now, they have all kinds of things like brain games. They have laughing babies that calm people down when they're agitated. We're expecting to see a reduction in stress hormones and
Wow.
the use of drugs, calming drugs. We can reduce those as well. So that's an exciting study that's coming up this year with an academic partner. And I hope, frankly, we can shame the rest of the industry, or inspire, I guess, glass half full, glass half empty.
Let's say
I hope we
inspire, I
can
like that.
inspire the rest of the industry. I hope that 10 years from now, when you walk into a nursing home, and again, we're not a nursing home, but we have a small piece of our business that's a nursing home. But when you walk into a nursing home, you say, you got water here, right? You've got heat here, right? You've got computer technology by mom's bedside so that we can Skype with her, or whatever the program is, and so that she can be entertained and engaged, and tailored programming can come to her to engage her with the world. You have that, right? I hope it's as basic as water in 10 years. That's,
oh, wow, that would be amazing. When I even my mom, you know, I love that she says, instead of, because some people will say, oh, I'm too old to learn email or use a computer, or, you know, my mother's always at 84. She's like, teach me how to do Twitter, teach me. And
perfect.
I know, I love that I always tell her I'm so proud of her for staying and wanting to learn something new.
She's got an adventuresome spirit. And
she does.
For those that don't, you now have a new talking point when you're talking to your parents about it. You can say, hey, look, if you want to keep your brain healthy, the point is to learn new things.
That's right.
Instead of learning the clarinet, why not the computer? Right. Why not do email? Why not?
That would be a great starting point.
That's right.
Well, we are about out of time, and you have brought some really great things that I can't wait to share with people, because you're right. I think there's a lot of ignorance in this topic. They just don't know, but we need to be intentional about making sure people understand what's out there and how they do have control. But this is Ann Farrell-Tata. We've been joined by Ben Unkle, CEO of Westminster Canterbury. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A,